Part 1. The Approach, the Cargo Ship. Morning glory moved slowly through the dark space of the Outer Reach sector. Inside the bridge, Captain Timon sat in his worn chair, watching the stars drift by on the view screen. He was 53 years old, with gray hair at his temples and tired eyes that had seen too many long trips through dangerous space. He had been running cargo ships for 15 years, and he knew when something was wrong. "Contact on sensors," Hyejin said from the pilot seat. She was younger, maybe 30, with short black hair and quick fingers that danced across her control panel. "Looks like a raider ship. Big one, too." Timon sighed and rubbed his face. "Of course. We're 3 days from the nearest station, carrying medical supplies and rare minerals. Perfect target." He pressed the intercom button. "Daeho, Bora, we've got company. Probably pirates." Down in the engine room, Daeho looked up from the panel he was fixing. He was a large man with strong hands, always covered in grease from keeping their old ship running. "Want me to give us more speed?" he asked. "Won't matter," Timon replied. "They're already in weapons range." In the medical bay, Bora checked her supplies. She was calm and quiet, the kind of person who never panicked even when everything was falling apart. "I'll prep the med bay just in case," she said softly. The pirate ship grew larger on the screen. It was called the Blood Fang, painted in dark red and black with weapon ports that looked like teeth. The ship belonged to the Talvexians, a species that looked like large reptiles with thick armor-like skin and eyes that glowed yellow in the dark. They were known across the galaxy as brutal fighters who took what they wanted and left nothing behind. "They're hailing us," Hyejin said, her hand hovering over the communication controls. "Put them through," Timon said, standing up and straightening his jacket. The view screen flickered and showed the face of Captain Rek. He was massive, with scales that looked like old leather, and teeth that were too sharp. When he spoke, his voice came through a translator device that made his words sound harsh and grinding. "Human vessel, you will cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Surrender your cargo and you may live. Resist and we will take it from your bodies." Timon crossed his arms and tried to look bored. He had dealt with pirates before, though never Talvexians. "This is a registered cargo vessel on a legal trade route. We're protected under galactic commerce laws." Vrek laughed, a sound like rocks scraping together. "Laws mean nothing out here, human. This is the Outer Reach. My laws are the only ones that matter." "You really don't want to do this," Timon said calmly. "Is that a threat? Your ship has no weapons. Our scans show only 5 crew members. You have nothing to fight with." "I tried to warn you," Timon said with a small smile. "But go ahead, board us. See what happens." Vrek's eyes narrowed. "You're bluffing." "But it doesn't matter. We're coming aboard anyway." The screen went dark. Hyejin turned to look at the captain. "Are we really going to let them board? We could try to run." "They'd just shoot out our engines," Timon said. "Besides, I wasn't bluffing." He pressed the intercom again. "Everyone get ready. We're about to have visitors. And someone wake up Momo." Down in the cargo bay, Daeho laughed. "Oh, this is going to be good. Those poor bastards have no idea what they're getting into." The Blood Fang moved alongside the Morning Glory like a predator circling wounded prey. There was a loud clang as the boarding tube attached to their airlock. Warning lights flashed red throughout the ship as the pirates began cutting through the outer door. Timon walked calmly down to the cargo bay, his hands in his pockets. Hyejin, Daeho, and Bora joined him, all of them standing together as the airlock finally burst open with a hiss of escaping air. 12 Talvexian warriors stormed through, each one nearly 2 meters tall and covered in battle armor that looked like it had seen 100 fights. They carried plasma rifles that hummed with deadly energy. Their yellow eyes scanned the cargo bay looking for threats. They found only 4 unarmed humans standing in the middle of the room. Looking surprisingly relaxed, Captain Rek stepped forward, his armor making heavy sounds on the metal floor. He pointed his weapon at Timon. "Smart choice, not resisting. Now you will show us where you keep the valuable cargo." "I told you on the comm," Timon said, his voice still calm. "You're making a mistake." "The only mistake was yours, thinking you could travel this sector unprotected," Rek growled. He looked around at the cargo containers and supplies. "Search everything. Take anything of value." "We are protected," Timon said. "We have a security officer." The Talvexians paused. Several of them raised their weapons higher, scanning the shadows between the cargo containers. Vrek's translator device crackled as he spoke. "Where is this security officer? Hiding like a coward?" "Not hiding," Hyejin said, trying not to smile. "Probably sleeping. Momo, "We've got intruders in the cargo bay." The Talvexians tensed, their weapons ready. They expected a security team to come running. They expected armed guards with shields and armor. They expected a fight. What they got instead was a soft musical sound echoing down the corridor. A gentle trill, like a question being asked. From around the corner, padding on silent paws, came a small orange and white cat. Momo was not large. She weighed maybe 4 kilograms, with fluffy fur that was orange on her back and white on her belly. She had a flat face with big green eyes and small ears that pointed forward. Her tail was thick and fluffy, held high in the air as she walked. The cat stopped in the doorway, sat down, and wrapped her tail neatly around her paws. She stared at the Talvexians with unblinking green eyes, her head tilted slightly to one side. For a long moment, nobody moved. The Talvexians stared at the small creature. Their computers tried to identify what species it was, but found nothing in any military database. No weapons detected, no cybernetic parts, no armor, just a small, fluffy animal with big eyes. "This," Rex said slowly, his voice filled with confusion and rising anger, "is your security officer?" "That's Momo," Taemin confirmed. "And I really think you should leave now." One of the Talvexian warriors, a soldier named Drex, lowered his weapon slightly. "Captain, this makes no sense. It's tiny. What is it supposed to do?" "I don't know, but I don't like it," another warrior said. "Why is it staring at us like that?" Momo made another sound, a soft chirp that the Talvexians' translator devices struggled to process. The computer finally settled on displaying the words, "Hostile presence detected." The cat stood up, stretched slowly with her front paws forward and her back arched, and then started walking toward the group of armed warriors. Her tail swished back and forth slowly and her eyes never left them. "Should we shoot it?" one warrior asked uncertainly. "It's just an animal," Rex snapped. "Ignore it. Search the cargo." But even as he gave the order, he couldn't take his eyes off the small creature approaching them. Momo sat down again, this time just 3 meters from the nearest Talvexian. She began to groom her paw, licking it carefully and then rubbing it over her ear, completely ignoring the heavily armed soldiers around her. "This is ridiculous," Drex muttered, taking a step toward the cat. "It's just a—" He never finished his sentence. What happened next would be talked about in pirate circles for years to come, though most people would never believe it. Part 2. The misunderstanding Momo's body went from relaxed to a blur of motion in less than a second. The small cat launched herself forward with speed that should not have been possible for something so small. She moved like an orange and white missile, aimed directly at Drex's chest. Drex panicked and fired his plasma rifle. The bright blue bolt of energy shot through the space where Momo had been, but she was no longer there. The cat twisted in midair with impossible grace, her body bending in ways that made no sense. The plasma shot missed her by centimeters and hit the wall behind her, leaving a black scorch mark. Momo landed on Drex's armored chest with all 4 paws, her claws extended sharp as surgical knives, and she immediately started climbing up toward his helmet. Drex screamed and tried to grab her, but the cat was too fast. She moved across his armor like water, her claws finding every strap, every buckle, every weak point. In 3 seconds, Drex's chest armor fell off, the straps cut cleanly through. His weapon clattered to the floor as Momo batted it away with one paw. 4 perfect scratches appeared across his helmet's viewport, not deep enough to break through, but perfectly placed to block his vision. Drex stumbled backward, waving his arms wildly, screaming words that the translator couldn't handle. Momo jumped off his shoulder, landed on the floor, walked a few steps away and sat down. She lifted one back leg in the air and began grooming it, as if nothing had happened. The other Talvexians stared in shock. Their weapons were still pointed forward, but nobody knew what to shoot at. "What? What just happened?" one warrior whispered. "Shoot it!" Rek roared, his voice breaking through the shock. "Kill that thing!" 11 plasma rifles fired at once. The cargo bay filled with blue light as energy bolts crossed through the space where Momo was sitting. But Momo was not there anymore. The cat moved like liquid shadow, flowing between the containers and crates. One moment she was on the floor, the next she was on a cargo box, then she was running up the wall like gravity meant nothing to her. The plasma bolts hit everything except their target. They hit walls, leaving burn marks. They hit cargo containers, setting off fire alarms. One shot hit another Talvexian warrior in the shoulder, making him cry out in pain. Momo ran across the ceiling, her claws finding grip in the metal panels. She moved from one side of the cargo bay to the other, and the Talvexians spun in circles trying to track her, their weapons firing wildly. "Stop shooting," Freck commanded. "You're hitting each other. Use your scanners." The warriors activated their helmet scanners, trying to track the small creature. The scanners showed nothing. No heat signature, no motion detection. It was as if the cat didn't exist. Then Momo dropped from the ceiling, landing on another warrior's head. She used his helmet as a springboard, pushing off with her back legs and launching herself across the room. As she flew through the air, her paw swiped across a third warrior's helmet, somehow releasing his chin strap. The helmet fell off, and the warrior stumbled backward in surprise. Momo landed gracefully on a tall stack of cargo containers and sat down. Her tail wrapped around her paws, looking down at the chaos below like a queen watching her subjects. From the bridge above the cargo bay, the human crew watched through security cameras. Hyejin was laughing so hard she had tears in her eyes. "Oh my God, she's playing with them. Look at her face. She's having the time of her life." Daeho shook his head, grinning. "I told you. Nobody ever expects the cat." Bora leaned forward, watching the screen carefully. "They're going to hurt themselves more than Momo hurts them. They have no idea how to fight something that small and fast." Captain Taemin pressed the intercom button. "Attention Talvexian warriors, this is your last warning. Leave now and nobody gets seriously hurt." "Leave?" Freck's voice came back, filled with rage and disbelief. "We are Talvexian warriors. We have conquered worlds. We do not run from a house." "Pet? House pet?" Hyejin repeated, looking at the captain. "Did their translator tell them Momo is a pet?" "Apparently," Taemin said. "That's probably making this worse for them." Down in the cargo bay, the Talvexians tried to regroup. They formed a circle, backs together, weapons pointed outward. It was a standard defensive formation that had worked in 1,000 battles. It did not work against a cat. Momo had disappeared into the ventilation system. The warriors could hear her moving through the walls, the soft sounds of claws on metal echoing from every direction. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The sound seemed to come from above, then below, then from the left, then from behind. "It's in the walls," a warrior said, his voice shaking. "Impossible," Rek growled. "The ventilation shafts are too small." But the sounds continued. Scratch, 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 moving through the walls like a ghost. A ventilation grate suddenly fell from the ceiling with a clang. Momo's face appeared in the hole, her green eyes glowing in the darkness. She made a sound, a soft merp, that sounded almost like a question. 3 warriors fired at the opening. Their shots tore through the ventilation shaft, melting metal and setting off more alarms. Momo was already gone. Another grate fell, this time behind them. Then another to the left. Then one to the right. Each time, Momo's face would appear for just a second before vanishing. The Talvexians spun in circles, firing at shadows, hitting nothing but their own ship's walls. "This is impossible," one warrior shouted. "How can one small creature be everywhere at once?" "It's not everywhere," Rek said, trying to sound calm even though his hands were shaking. "It's just fast. Very fast. And it's using the ventilation system to move around. We need to seal the vents." But before anyone could move to seal anything, Momo dropped from a shaft directly above them. She landed on a warrior's shoulder, touched her nose to his helmet's faceplate, and then jumped away before he could react. The warrior screamed and fell backward, crashing into 2 other warriors. Momo ran between their legs, her tail high in the air. As she passed, her claws caught on weapon straps, equipment belts, and armor fasteners. Warriors stumbled and tripped, their gear falling off or getting tangled. The cat stopped near the cargo bay door and sat down to groom her whiskers, completely calm while chaos erupted around her. "What is that thing?" a warrior gasped, backing toward the airlock. Over the intercom, Engineer Daeho's voice provided an answer. "Momo is a Terran domestic feline. Species name is Felis catus. Earth designation cat. She weighs about 4 kilograms and is 7 years old." "Domestic?" Rek's translator struggled with the word. You mean, it's a pet? You keep this as a pet? Well, technically Momo owns us, Hyejin added. That's how cats work. We're more like her servants who feed her and clean her litter box. Litter box? Another warrior asked weakly. It's where she poops, Bo-Ra explained helpfully. The psychological impact of this information hit the Talvexians like a physical blow. They were not being defeated by a security system. They were not being defeated by a weapon. They were being systematically humiliated by something humans kept in their homes for companionship, a creature that used a box to poop. One warrior dropped his weapon and ran for the airlock. Then another. Then 3 more. Hold your positions, Rek roared, but his voice cracked. Even he could feel his warrior's pride crumbling. Momo yawned, showing sharp white teeth and a pink tongue. Then she stretched again, front paws forward, back arched, tail straight up in the air. To the humans it was adorable. To the Talvexians it looked like a predator preparing for another attack. Retreat, Rek said quietly. Then louder. Retreat! Back to the ship! Now! The warriors didn't need to be told twice. They ran for the airlock, stumbling over dropped weapons and each other in their panic to escape. Momo watched them go, her tail swishing slowly back and forth. Part 3. The escalation captain Rek stood in the airlock of his ship, watching his 12 warriors stumble back aboard. They were not injured, not really. A few scratches on armor, some bruised pride, but their eyes showed something worse than physical damage. They showed fear, Captain, his first officer said quietly. Should we disengage? The humans clearly have some kind of advanced defense system we didn't know about. No, Rek growled, his claws digging into his palms. We are Talvexians. Our ancestors conquered 70 worlds. We do not retreat from one small Earth creature. He turned to the communications officer. Send in the second wave. 8 more warriors. Full combat armor, heavy weapons, and tell them about the cat. On the Morning Glory, Taemin watched the scanners as more Talvexians prepared to board. They're sending more, he said, shaking his head. I honestly didn't think they'd be this stubborn. Their pride won't let them walk away, Hyejin said. They came here to rob us and instead they got embarrassed by a cat. They have to save face somehow. Daeho appeared on the bridge carrying Momo in his arms. The cat was purring loudly, her eyes half closed in contentment. Found her in the engine room sleeping on the warm pipes. I think all that exercise made her tired. Well, she's about to get more exercise, Taemin said. They're sending 20 warriors this time. Momo's ears perked up at this news. Her eyes opened fully and she jumped down from Daeho's arms. She trotted to the bridge window and looked out at the pirate ship, her tail twitching with interest. I think she heard you, Bo-Ra said, coming onto the bridge with a small bag. I brought treats. She's going to need energy. The second wave of Talvexian warriors boarded through the same airlock. This time they came prepared. They had motion scanners, thermal imaging, and heavy blast shields. They moved in tight formation, covering all angles. Remember, their squad leader said, the creature is small and fast. It uses the ventilation system to move around. Don't fire unless you have a clear shot. Watch for Momo appeared in front of them, sitting in the middle of the corridor. She meowed once, a soft sound that the translators rendered as hello. 20 plasma rifles pointed at her. 20 fingers tightened on triggers. Momo disappeared. Not into the vents this time. She simply ran forward straight at the warriors. But she ran so low to the ground and so fast that their weapons couldn't track her. She was a blur of orange and white that flowed like water between their legs. The warriors spun around trying to find her, and crashed into each other with their heavy blast shields. Their tight formation became a tangled mess of armored bodies and confused shouts. Momo climbed up the back of one warrior, ran across his shoulders, jumped to another warrior's helmet, used it as a stepping stone to reach the ceiling, and disappeared into a ventilation shaft. There, it went into the vents. A warrior shouted, seal the vents, the squad leader ordered. Don't let it move around. Warriors rushed to close ventilation grates, welding them shut with plasma torches. They sealed 10 grates, then 15, then 20. The ventilation system was slowly being closed off. On the bridge, Hyejin frowned at her screens. They're sealing the vents, smart. That was Momo's main advantage. Was it? Taemin asked, pointing at another screen. The security cameras showed Momo squeezing through a gap in the wall panels that looked far too small for even a cat. She emerged in a storage room, shook herself, and then slipped through another impossible crack. Cats don't have collarbones, Bora explained, watching the screen. They can fit through any space their head can fit through, and Momo is very flexible. Down in the corridors, the Talvexians heard scratching sounds from inside the walls, but now the sounds were different. They were closer, more immediate. The scratching moved from one wall panel to another, following the warriors as they searched. "It's in the walls now," a warrior said nervously. "Not the vents, the actual walls." "That's impossible," the squad leader said. "The gaps between wall panels are only a few centimeters wide." Scratch, scratch, scratch. The sound followed them as they moved through the ship. Momo was hunting now. The first boarding had been territorial defense. This was different. The pirates had come back after she had warned them away. In her mind, they were not just intruders anymore. They were prey. A wall panel suddenly popped open. Momo's paw shot out, claws extended, and swiped at a warrior's leg. The claws didn't penetrate the armor but left deep scratches across the metal. The panel snapped shut before anyone could react. Another panel opened behind them. Momo's face appeared, her eyes reflecting light like small green lanterns. She hissed, a sound that made several warriors take a step back. Then she was gone again. "It's playing with us," a warrior whispered. "Like we're toys." "We are not toys," Rek's voice came through their communications. "We are warriors. Find that creature and kill it." But finding Momo was like trying to catch smoke. She appeared and disappeared, always where they weren't looking. Sometimes she would run across the ceiling right above them, her claws clicking on metal. Sometimes she would dart between their legs so fast they only saw a flash of orange. Sometimes she would just sit at the end of a corridor, watching them, and vanish when they got close. The warriors started making mistakes. They fired at shadows. They tripped over each other. One warrior swung his weapon at what he thought was the cat and hit another warrior's shield instead. The human crew watched from the safety of the bridge, providing commentary like sports announcers. "Oh, there she goes with the ceiling run," Heejin said. "Classic Momo move. 10 credits says she takes down the big one in the red armor next," Daeho offered. "No bet," Taemin replied. "That's obviously her next target. She always goes for the leader." As if she could hear them, Momo focused on the squad leader. He was larger than the others, with red markings on his armor that showed his rank. He stood in the center of his group trying to direct them. Momo dropped from a ceiling panel directly above him. But instead of attacking, she just landed on top of his helmet and sat there, balanced perfectly on his head. The squad leader froze. "It's on me," he said quietly. "It's sitting on my head." "Don't move," another warrior said. "We'll shoot it. You'll shoot me," the squad leader snapped. Momo's tail swished back and forth, brushing against his helmet's viewport. Then she stood up, stretched, and jumped away, landing on a cargo container and immediately starting to groom her paw. The psychological warfare was complete. These were not the tactics of an animal. This was intelligent. This was calculated. This was a predator that knew exactly how to break its prey's spirit without even seriously harming them. "Retreat," the squad leader said, his voice hollow. "Everyone fall back to the ship, now." "But we haven't secured the cargo," a warrior protested weakly. "I don't care about the cargo anymore." "Fall back!" The 20 warriors retreated in disorder, practically running back to their ship. Momo followed them at a distance, her tail high in the air, escorting them off her territory like a homeowner chasing away unwanted visitors. As the last warrior crossed back into the Blood Fang, Momo sat down at the threshold of the airlock. She watched them with her unblinking green eyes, her tail swishing slowly from side to side. Captain Rek appeared at the airlock door. He stared down at the small cat. Momo stared back, unafraid. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Momo made a soft chirping sound and tilted her head to the side as if asking a question. Rek felt something he had not felt in 20 years of piracy. He felt like prey. This tiny creature, this pet, had looked at 32 armed Talvexian warriors and saw nothing to fear. She had defeated them not with strength or weapons, but with speed, intelligence, and the absolute confidence of a predator in her own territory. "Close the airlock," Rek said quietly. "We're leaving." "But Captain," his first officer started. "I said we're leaving," Rek roared. "Disengage now." The airlock sealed. The Bloodfang detached from the morning glory and slowly moved away, its engines burning blue as it fled into deep space. Momo watched the pirate ship go. Then she turned and walked back into the cargo bay, her tail still high in the air. She had defended her territory. Now it was time for a nap. Part 4. The Aftermath. The mess hall of the Morning Glory smelled like coffee and dried fish. The crew sat around the small table, eating their dinner while Momo lounged in the middle of the table like she owned it. Because in her mind she did own it. She owned the entire ship. Bora tore off a small piece of dried fish and placed it in front of the cat. Momo sniffed it carefully, decided it was acceptable, and ate it with dainty bites. Then she started purring, a sound like a small motor running. "You know," Bora said, scratching behind Momo's ears, "we should probably feel bad about what just happened. Those warriors were terrified. Should we, though?" Hijin asked, sipping her coffee. "They came to rob us. They threatened to kill us and space our bodies. All Momo did was defend her home." "Her home being our ship," Daeho added, rubbing under Momo's chin. The cat's purring got louder and she pushed her head against his hand, demanding more attention. "As far as Momo is concerned, we're just the staff. We feed her, we clean her litter box, and we live in her space vessel." Captain Taemin sat at his small desk in the corner, filling out the incident report on his datapad. The form had a section for type of incident, and he checked the box marked Pirate Attack Repelled. Then there was a section asking Method of Defense Used, and he typed, "Onboard security officer responded to intruders and successfully drove them off vessel. No casualties on either side. Minor damage to cargo bay walls from hostile weapons fire." It was all technically true. He just didn't mention that the security officer was a 7-year-old rescue cat from Seoul that he had adopted when she was a kitten. "Do you think they'll spread the word?" Hijin asked, feeding Momo another piece of fish. Taemin smiled. "Oh, definitely. Pirates talk to each other. They share information about dangerous routes, well-defended targets, and ships to avoid. The Morning Glory just made that list. But will they tell the truth?" Bora wondered. "I mean, who's going to believe that a cat defeated 32 armed warriors?" "That's the beautiful part," Taemin said, saving his report and sending it to the shipping company's database. "They won't tell the exact truth. They can't. Can you imagine Captain Rek admitting to the other pirate captains that he got chased away by a house pet? His reputation would be destroyed. He'd be laughed out of every pirate haven in the sector." Daeho nodded. "So he'll make it sound more dangerous. He'll say we have some kind of advanced security system. A biological weapon, maybe. Small, fast, deadly. He'll call it a cat but describe it as something terrifying. And the story will spread," Hijin said, understanding. "Each time it's told, Momo will get a little more dangerous in the telling. By the time it reaches the other side of the galaxy, we'll have a monster on our ship." Momo chose that moment to roll onto her back, exposing her fluffy white belly and stretching her paws in the air. She looked absolutely ridiculous, her eyes half closed, her mouth open in a little yawn that showed all her teeth. The crew looked at their terrifying monster and laughed. On the Bloodfang, the atmosphere was very different. The ship's crew sat in silence as Captain Rek wrote his report. He had to be careful. The truth would destroy his reputation, but a lie might be discovered. He needed something in between. His first officer, a scarred veteran named Krell, stood nearby. "What will you tell the guild?" he asked quietly. The Pirates Guild was not official, but it was real. Pirates shared information with each other, warned each other about dangerous targets, and kept records of successful raids. A failed raid needed to be reported and explained. Rek's claws tapped on his datapad as he thought. "We tell them the truth, most of it. We attempted to board a human cargo vessel. The vessel was defended by a biological security system designated as a cat. Species, Felis catus. Terran origin, approximately 4 kilograms, extreme agility and speed. Resistant to standard weapons fire due to size and movement patterns. Unpredictable behavior. Uses ventilation systems and wall gaps to move through ships." "That's accurate," Krell said. "Then I add a recommendation," Rek continued. "Human vessels carrying cats should be considered high-risk targets. Casualties unlikely, but successful boarding nearly impossible. Time and resources better spent on other targets." Krell read over the report. "It makes us sound cautious, strategic, not like we ran away." "We didn't run away," Rek said firmly. "We made a tactical decision. There's a difference, but in his heart, Vrek knew they had run. He had looked into those green eyes and felt like prey for the first time in his warrior's life. He would never forget it. The report went out through the pirate networks, encrypted and coded, passed from ship to ship across the sector. Other pirate captains read it with interest. Some laughed. A cat, really? The mighty wreck defeated by a pet? But then the details came through. The size, the speed, the way it moved through spaces that should be impossible, the way it anticipated their movements, and most importantly the fact that Wreck was a respected captain who had successfully raided dozens of ships. If he said a target was too difficult, smart pirates listened. Within a week, 3 other pirate crews reported similar encounters with human ships carrying cats. Each report confirmed the same thing. Small, fast, impossible to hit. More trouble than they were worth. A Velcrosian merchant captain, transporting goods through the same sector, received a message from a pirate contact he paid for information. The message was simple. Human cargo ship Morning Glory passed through your route yesterday. Has a cat. Recommend you hire one. Pirates avoiding those ships now. The Velcrosian captain, who had long, flexible tentacles and a practical mind, immediately began researching where to acquire a Terran cat. At a neutral trading station on the edge of the sector, captains from various species gathered in the common bar to share stories and news. A Drayan trader leaned forward, her blue scales catching the light. I heard the Talvexians tried to board a human ship last week. Lost 30 warriors. Lost? Another captain asked. You mean killed? No, just defeated, humiliated by something called a cat. A young Quilarian pilot laughed. A cat? What's that, some kind of weapon? An older human captain sitting quietly in the corner spoke up. Not a weapon. A companion animal. We've had them on ships since we first started sailing Earth's oceans thousands of years ago. They were good at catching rats and mice. Now we keep them because... He paused, thinking. Well, because they're good company. And apparently they're good at scaring away pirates. A companion animal defeated Talvexian warriors? The Quilarian couldn't believe it. The human captain pulled out his datapad and showed them a picture. It showed a fat orange cat sleeping in a sunbeam, belly up, looking completely harmless. That, he said, is approximately what Rex warriors encountered, though the one on the Morning Glory is probably more fit. The other captains stared at the picture, then at each other, then back at the picture. You're telling me that thing defeated armed soldiers? The Drayan asked. That thing is a predator, the human explained. On Earth, cats are apex hunters. They've been hunting for millions of years. They have reflexes faster than almost any other animal. They can jump 5 times their own height. They can fit through any space their head can fit through. And most importantly, they have no fear. A cat will attack something 10 times its size if it feels threatened or if something enters its territory. But it's so small, the Quilarian protested. Size doesn't matter when you're faster. Then your opponent can track, the human said. And cats are ambush predators. They don't fight fair. They use surprise, speed, and terrain to their advantage. In a ship's corridors and ventilation systems, a cat has every advantage. The Talvexians never had a chance. The information spread. Within 2 weeks, human shipping companies started confirm whether their ships carried cats. If not, where could cats be obtained? The Terran Animal Adoption Network, which had been struggling to find homes for rescue cats, suddenly found themselves overwhelmed with requests from freight companies. Every captain wanted a cat for their ship. It's for security purposes, they all claimed. The adoption counselors were confused but happy. Well, cats do make excellent companions for long space voyages, one counselor said to a confused tie-in when he called to check on the sudden interest. They're independent, clean, and they adapt well to ship life. We're just surprised by the sudden demand. Trust me, Taemin said, looking at Momo, who was currently knocking a pen off his desk, for be even more surprised when you find out why everyone wants them. Back on the Morning Glory, life returned to normal. The ship continued its route, delivering cargo from station to station. Momo continued her daily routine of sleeping, eating, demanding attention, and occasionally running through the corridors at 3 a.m. for no apparent reason. But there was one change. When other ships passed them in space, their captains would send friendly greetings. Some would specifically ask, "Is it true you have a cat abo?" And when Taemin confirmed this, the responses were always respectful. Sometimes even nervous. The Morning Glory passed through the Outer Reach sector 3 more times in the following months. Not a single pirate ship approached them. Some even changed course to avoid them. Heejin noticed this and laughed. We've become the ship that pirates run away from. All because of a 4-kilogram ball of fur. Best security in VC. Part 5. The legend grows. 6 months had passed since the incident with the Bloodfang. In that time, the story of Momo had traveled across the galaxy, changing and growing with each telling. The truth had become legend, and the legend had become something entirely different. On Galactic Station Epsilon, a massive trading hub where hundreds of species came together to buy, sell, and exchange information, the story was being told in a dozen different ways. In a dark corner of the station's largest cantina, a Velcrosian merchant captain named Ro leaned across the table toward a group of younger traders. His tentacles curled with emphasis as he spoke. I heard about a human transport ship that fought off 50 raiders, Ro said, his voice low and serious. The humans had something aboard called a cat. The raiders thought it would be easy. They were wrong. 50 raiders? A young Drayan trader named Sola looked skeptical. Her blue scales flickered with doubt. That seems like a lot. I'm telling you what I heard, Ro insisted. 50 warriors went aboard. Only 30 came back out. The others. Nobody knows what happened to them. The cat got them. At another table, a different version was being told. A Quilarian pilot named Vex spoke with absolute confidence to his crew. My cousin's friend saw the security footage. The creature is massive, bigger than a shuttlecraft. It has fangs that can pierce hull plating and claws that can shred battle armor like paper. The humans call it a cat, but that's just code for something else. Something they don't want other species to know about. If it's so big, how does it fit on a cargo ship? One of his crew asked. Vex paused, then nodded knowingly. That's the clever part. The humans have technology that makes it smaller. Then when there's danger, it grows to full size. Instant security system. Neither story was true, but both were believed. At the bar, nursing a drink and listening to all these stories, sat Captain Taemin. He had stopped at Epsilon Station to deliver a cargo of medical equipment and to pick up supplies. He found the stories both amusing and slightly disturbing. His small, fluffy cat had become a monster in the minds of the galaxy. Heejin sat next to him, also listening. They think Momo is the size of a shuttle, she whispered, with hull-piercing fangs. I heard the version where she killed 20 raiders and ate them, Taemin whispered back. That's disgusting, and impossible. Momo is a picky eater. She won't even eat the cheap cat food. A young human captain approached them nervously. She was maybe 25, with short hair and uncertain eyes. Excuse me, she said. Are you Captain Taemin, from the Morning Glory? Taemin nodded. I am. The young woman sat down without being invited, her words coming out in a rush. Is it true? About the cat? I've heard so many stories. People say you fought off a Talvexian raiding party. They say your cat is some kind of super weapon. They say pirates won't come near your ship anymore. Taemin pulled out his datapad and brought up a photo. He turned it to show her. The image showed Momo sleeping on her back in a sunbeam, her paws curled up, her belly exposed, her mouth slightly open. She looked completely ridiculous and utterly harmless. That, he said, is Momo. She weighs about 4 kilograms. She's 7 years old. I adopted her from a rescue shelter in Seoul when she was a kitten. She likes dried fish, chasing laser pointers, and sleeping in warm places. She is not a super weapon. She is a normal Earth cat. The young captain stared at the photo, her expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally understanding. But the stories. The stories are exaggerated, Taemin said. Here's what really happened. Some Talvexian pirates tried to board my ship. They expected us to be defenseless. Instead, they encountered Momo, who decided they were intruders in her territory. Cats are territorial. They're also predators, even if humans treat them as pets. Momo did what cats do. She defended her space using speed, agility, and the element of surprise. The Talvexians panicked because they weren't prepared for something that small and fast. They retreated. That's the whole story. But it worked, the young captain said slowly. They left. It worked because they didn't understand what they were facing, Yejin added. Fear of the unknown is powerful. They had never seen a cat before. Their weapons couldn't track something that fast and small, and the psychological impact of being defeated by what they learned was a pet, that broke them. The young captain leaned back, thinking. Do you think, would it work for other ships if other human captains had cats aboard? Taemin considered this. Honestly, maybe. Cats have been aboard human ships since ancient times on Earth. Old naval tradition. They caught rats and mice, kept the ship clean of pests. They were working animals, though we also loved them as companions. Now in space, they serve a different purpose. The legend is doing most of the work. Pirates hear that a ship has a cat and they remember the stories. They don't want to risk finding out if the stories are true. So it's psychological warfare, the young captain said. Exactly. And the best part? We don't have to do anything. Momo is just being a cat. She eats, sleeps, plays, and occasionally defends her territory. That's all. But the stories make her into something terrifying. The young captain stood up. Decision made. I'm going to get a cat. Maybe 2 cats. For my ship. Good idea, Taemin said. Just remember, you don't own a cat. At best, you coexist with one. They're independent, stubborn, and they will knock things off your desk for no reason. But they're also good company on long voyages. And yes, they might scare away pirates. After the young captain left, Yejin turned to Taemin. How many do you think will do it? How many captains will get cats because of what happened to us? A lot, Taemin predicted. Word spreads fast out here. If cats give ships a reputation for being dangerous, every smart CA within 3 months, the Terran Animal Adoption Network reported that they had placed over 300 cats aboard various ships. The waiting list for adoptions grew longer every day. Shelters that had been struggling to find homes for rescue cats suddenly had more applications than they could handle. The requirements were strict. Captains had to prove they could care for a cat properly. They needed to show they had appropriate space food, medical supplies, and understanding of feline behavior. Many applications were rejected, but many were approved. And slowly cats began spreading across human space on cargo ships, passenger vessels, and private transports. The effect on piracy was immediate and measurable. Human ships with cats listed in their official manifests saw an 80% reduction in pirate and still significant reduction, because pirates couldn't always tell if a ship had a cat or not. The Pirates Guild issued an updated advisory that spread through all the criminal networks. Warning: human vessels may deploy cats for security purposes. Species: Felis catus. Weight: 4 to 5 kilograms. Highly aggressive territorial behavior. Extreme speed and agility. Unpredictable movement makes targeting nearly impossible. May operate in groups. Avoid engagement unless absolutely necessary. Cargo value must significantly outweigh risk. The advisory was marked as high priority and based on multiple confirmed encounters. Not one word of it was exaggerated. It was all true. Cats were exactly as described. The pirates had simply learned to respect what they didn't understand. A year after the original incident, a galactic news service ran a feature story titled, "The Unexpected Security Solution: How Earth's Cats Became the Galaxy's Most Effective Pirate Deterrent." The article interviewed multiple captains, including Taemin, and even included footage of Momo sleeping, playing, and doing normal cat things. The article went viral across multiple species networks. Some found it funny. Some found it hard to believe. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humans were weird for taking their predators into space and treating them as family members. But weird or not, it worked. On the Morning Glory, life continued as normal. Momo remained completely unaware of her fame. She slept, ate, played, demanded attention, and occasionally ran through the corridors at 3 in the morning because she saw a shadow or heard a noise or simply felt like running. You know what's funny? Daeho said one day, watching Momo chase a laser pointer across the cargo bay. Momo has no idea she's famous. She doesn't know that pirates fear her. She doesn't know her name is spoken in a dozen languages across the galaxy. She's just being a cat. That's the beauty of it, Bora replied. She doesn't need to know. She's not doing this for fame or reputation. She's just living her life, and that life happens to include defending her territory from intruders. Captain Tayman watched his security officer pounce on the red dot of light, her tail puffed up with excitement. Humanity's greatest contribution to galactic security, he said with a smile. Not weapons, not shields, not advanced technology, just cats. The same animals that lived in our homes for 10,000 years. They protected our grain stores from mice, Hyejin said. Now they protect our cargo from pirates. Some things never change. Outside the window, another ship passed by. Its transponder signal included a note in its identification. Security officer aboard, Felis Catus. A warning to anyone who might have bad intentions. On that ship, another cat was probably sleeping in a sunbeam, completely unaware of the psychological warfare it was waging simply by existing. And somewhere in the dark spaces between stations, a pirate captain read the transponder Psi.